Happy Tuesday. Hello, all. Everyone who is watching and is here faithfully every week. You know that this is my favorite day of the week because we get to interact with so many people and so many devoted followers who watch every week. Just a recap of what we last discussed the last time we were on. We were speaking about cheating in relationships and how that affects people with domestic violence. We had an amazing conversation with both the opinion of a female and a male. I think it was amazing. After we ended the show, I had so many people inboxing, sending message, calling. Hello, Carmen. I see you. Thanks for being here. We had so many people giving us amazing feedback. So I want you guys to know that we're so appreciative of all who watch and always are just sitting out there while we're doing this every Tuesday. You guys are amazing. I keep hearing from my guests that my audience rocks. You guys are loving. You always support the people who are on screen. And we truly, truly appreciate you being here and just supporting what it is that we do. This week, we are talking about social media and how it plays a role in domestic violence. A lot of people wonder what that means. So we're not just talking about Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. We will. But we're also talking about the news media and how news reporters depict social media and domestic violence. We're talking about magazines that people read and how they talk about domestic violence. We're talking about victim blaming and all of the above. So sit down, grab your glass of vino if that's what you do. Grab whatever it is that's going to make you comfortable to sit for the next hour. I want to welcome back someone super important to me because she's my sis. She was here before when we had the episode Oye, comai. She is my comadre, and she has been in my life obviously forever. She is joining me today on the screen so that she can help me talk about today's subject. Sorry, that's what happens when it's live. Sometimes you fumble with your words. So I'm going to call Jessica Fontanez. I was about to call her Sanchez. I apologize. You are a wife now. Jessica Fontanez, welcome to our show this evening. Hey, boo.
Hey.
Listen, we both know how hyper we both are. So that hey is like dry, raise it up a notch.
I haven't had my glass of wine yet, so
Pues sigue tragando.
I'll
Sigue
get
tragando.
there. I'll get there.
Welcome back to our show this evening. It's always exciting for me when I have people that I love on the other side of the screen because most times I know my people. But when I love my people, there's a difference, and I love you. So how are you feeling tonight? We got some energy. We pumped for tonight's topic.
I'm ready. I am ready.
I am ready.
Excited. Thank you for having me.
Of course, you're welcome. So before we get into tonight's topic, I always love for people to know who my guests are and where they play a role in this domestic violence that I have going on here, this whole organization, right? Because you don't just throw anyone on the screen. Hello, Evelyn Ramos. That's my other comai. We see you watching. Thanks for being here. So every time I have someone on, I want my viewers to know, how does this person know her? How do they play a role? So you have been in my life, obviously, forever. But I want to get your thoughts on how, when I began this mission, what you thought and how you felt like, wow, like, what is she doing? Or you thought I was nuts, because some people did think I was crazy. What was your perception of this when I began?
I also thought you were crazy, but not in the bad. I bet you weren't expecting that, but not in a bad way. I'm honestly impressed with the follow through. I'm glad to see that this is something that has progressed over time and hasn't fallen off to the side. Because it's easy for something as important and draining as this can be emotionally and mentally and sometimes physically, because this takes a lot out of you when you're running around, especially for the 5K that you did. So I'm glad that the follow through is there, that you have the support that you do, and that you're able to bring this to light, because it's courageous that you were able to talk about it from your perspective, from somebody's perspective that's been in this role, who's survived it and surpassed it. So it's good to see you go along and take your story and kind of wear it as a badge of honor. Like, this is not what defines me. It basically gives me a new purpose. So I'm actually proud of you for this.
Thank you. I think that that's the honest truth, that it has given me a purpose. I think that during that time, I was so alone in my thoughts and physically alone because I didn't share it with other people. So I never, seek therapy at that time. I kind of just let it be something in the background. And I think that through, and I say this over and over again, I think that through being able to speak to other women and other men who have dealt with domestic violence and talking about it on a weekly basis and hearing from different people, it's become super therapeutic for me. And I said this to Carmen, who's actually watching. Carmen wrote a comment under last week's show on Instagram, and she said how she loves coming every week and watching, and how she feels better watching it. And I toucheed her because I said every week that I do this, it's therapy for me. Being able to see that I'm not alone and people have lived through this as well, and they're here and they're watching and we're supporting one another. Evelyn Ramos is watching, and she had said the one time it's like a girls' club because we support one another. We get on here, and not to shoot out the men. So any men that are watching, we welcome you guys too. You can be a part of our club. We let you in. But it's really super therapeutic for me. So tonight's subject is about social media and how it affects domestic violence. So one of the first things that I want to talk about is how it's desensitized in the media. Um, when I say that, I say desensitized because sometimes, and most oftentimes, women are treated as if, it's their fault. Something that she did caused it. And, per se, let's talk about the news media because I think that that's something that's super big. Oftentimes, when situations happen in the news media, they'll talk about the point. This person was shot, this person was killed. And then they'll hear from like their witnesses. And then instead of just letting it be what it is, they'll come back with, further news now, the wife may have been cheating, or like, it's always like, does that mean that it was okay for her to either be cheated on or beat on or killed? And that's something that I thought was super important to stress. And that's why we chose this topic tonight. Hello, Christine. We see you. What are your thoughts on how the media desensitize it? Like, what is your experience? What have you seen in the media?
It's actually funny that that you bring this up right now, because right before the show, I was watching an episode of Dateline where the husband was looking to get out of his 7-month marriage. His wife was pregnant. All of a sudden, the wife ends up dead while she's pregnant. And of course, the husband, he got put on trial for this. And I was thinking to myself, as they're going through this trial, they brought up the fact that he was having an affair with one of his coworkers. But then they drug her name through the mud because prior to her getting married, she had had an affair with one of her coworkers. And it was almost like, so was she at fault because she was murdered because her husband wanted out? And, I don't know the full story. There could be more details to that, but that sticks out to me because, one of the quick snippets was the affair that she had was actually ended 2 weeks prior to her wedding day. That was just a quick blurb in their court sentence or their court case, but they were very specific about all of the gory details of her affair. But when it came down to his affair, it was he was having an affair with a coworker. Just simple. So I feel like in some cases it's a little bit of victim blaming. In other cases, it's almost like they shed the light to see how this was her fault. Why, in other words, sort of like to justify it or give an excuse for why she is now deceased, and so was her unborn baby. So it's funny that you would bring it up, and I happened to be watching that immediately before this show, just because I kept thinking like it's not her fault that she's, regardless if she had an affair that went right through or if he had an affair, it doesn't justify. There's no excuse for her to be now dead and gone while he still walks the earth.
Yeah. I think I think that for a lot of people is what they do to find a reason behind, kind of excuse what was happened to them. As well as I know that, a friend, was killed by her husband. We won't get into detail about that. But after the fact, on social media, there was like a war between people, battling on social media. Well, we know she was cheating. And what if she was cheating? And did he cheat? And she shouldn't have been cheating. And it was like making her look like she was the bad person during that time, as if her dying was not the point. It was more
like she deserved it.
As if she deserved it. Right. And I think that that's what a lot of media portrays at times, because they can tell you the facts of why the person was beat, of why the person was injured. But then as soon as they start to hear from other people in the community or they start to interview, it's like, so an update to this story, the wife was cheating, as if that means because she cheated, she deserved to have been killed.
I think it's almost like a juicy gossip tidbit almost. Like they need to talk about those gory details
Mhm.
to gossip about it, not because there's any relevance to the actual case or to the actual person who's now gone or maybe up and left,
Right. And it kind of makes the story more interesting for the people watching.
to captivate the viewers and
Right.
give them the information that they want them to have
Right.
versus what matters.
Right. So, as per every show prior, I always do research. I always look things up and I, read articles and kind of see what different people's perspectives are. And one of the things that they spoke about in, why does social media affect domestic violence? One of the one things that they said is how abusers can use social media as another way of hurting them. So, say the person has kicked the person out, they're no longer with you, they're no longer in the relationship, they're gone. This person now can use social media to cyber stalk someone. They can make numerous fake pages to watch the person and then be able to say, I know this is what you were doing. I saw what you were doing. You were out on this night. You did that on this night. So then the person now is scared to even be on social media because they're terrified. Oh my God, if I get on social media, he's going to see what I'm doing or she's going to find me somewhere type of situation. Christine Santos says too many people still don't view domestic violence as real or a real problem. That's a huge issue, Christine Santos, because a lot of people think that, I think we've said this before in plenty other shows, it's normalized so much. Since it's so normal to people, they can do things like that, like go on the media and just be like, oh, well, she cheated and this is why this has happened, because to them it's not a real situation. Teresa Fetzer put up a comment, but it's super long. So I wanted to say, Jess, you got to go like this.
Hi,
So,
Teresa.
social media most definitely plays a role in domestic violence. My house would be in shambles each time I caught my ex messaging with women, and they too were in relationships. Some of them are on this page, just saying. Okay. So, yes, sadly, folks are being abused because you want to be amused. That's pretty deep, Teresa. I think that social media can cause a lot of issues, whether it's through domestic violence or just relationships in general. I think that people use social media as a weapon. Teresa says, hello, Jessica. I think they use it as a weapon because they feel as though I still have a way of watching you. I still can see what it is that you do.
And if
And
I can't see what you're doing, I'm going to get my friends to friend request
right.
you so that they can tell me where you are, who you're with, what
Yes.
you're wearing. And that's going to be my way of controlling you. But you know how I feel about social media. And um, I very much try to keep my friends list to just people that I know. I'm
Right.
very, especially any place where I post pictures of my kids and things.
Right. Right.
And it always baffles me how people are either cyber stalking someone else on behalf of a friend without really taking into consideration the danger that they could be putting them in.
Absolutely.
Because you never really know how far off the deep end someone's going to go.
Absolutely.
And that's usually those reports that you hear about people when they snap and they go, well, I never thought this person could do this.
Right.
And it's almost like, but you also don't know the details of the relationship. You don't know how long this has been going on. You don't know what goes on behind closed doors.
Right. You're only getting one side of the story.
And that's what people choose to allow you to see on social media. But then again, you also have the direct messages where, bringing up Teresa's point, when there's people that want to be amused, you know, I feel like sometimes people are looking for the attention that they can't get at home. So they look for it elsewhere, maybe in a direct message from a friend or to a friend. And
Right.
that escalates. And then the next thing you know, a partner finds it and an argument ensues. And that's
Right.
how a beating takes place. Or
Right.
that's another situation that you hear about on the news or from a friend when they go, I need a place to stay.
Right.
So
Absolutely. Christine Santos says people would ask me indirectly what I did because they couldn't believe my abuser was being abusive. He was so good at deceiving people. Well, that's the key. A lot of times you're in these relationships, you're going through domestic violence, and the people that are on team whoever team, whatever the person's name is or whoever he or she is, they sit there and, they portray themselves as such angelic or just gentlemanlike, and she just, walks with grace. And I would never. And you have no idea the type of people these people are. And that's what becomes so dangerous, because then you have people following you on your Facebook or your Instagram, and they're like telling the person, like, she went out last night, right? And oh, she had a date last night. And they think that they're doing that person some sort of justice because they're helping feed them with that information, exactly to your point. Then not realizing you gave him all that information, which then fueled his anger and took him to the front of her house to either hit her car or do something to hurt her. Teresa says, sadly, I know a young lady who was left for dead. And with the grace of God, she is still here, but blind. And her ex was able to find her and where she lived at through social media. And she has a different name and social security number. Wow. That's devastating. And I I think I have this problem, and I do it often. So for me, I'll give myself as an example because I always do. For me, when I go places, I am always checking in. So if I'm at the gym, I check in, or if I go to eat, I check in. And my boyfriend used to say to me, "Stop letting people know where you're at all the time. You don't know who's watching. You have to stop checking into places." And I just do it because I'm like, a lot of people write to me and say, "Oh, you go to the gym, it inspires me to go." Da, da, da. So I do it without thinking. But there's a lot of people who do that constantly. They check in everywhere they're at. And then later on down the line, you have no idea who was watching that person. And people, unfortunately, are like, "I don't know how he found her. She doesn't communicate with him." But then there's people on social media that are following you and they're feeding that to him. Carmen says, all of them are very good at deceiving others. Yeah, absolutely they are. He's right, Christina. He's right, Christina. I'm telling you.
You can't do it because it establishes a pattern. If you check into the gym every Monday night, it's not hard for somebody to figure it out. Oh, every Monday night at 7, she's at the gym. If you want to see her, that's where you're going to find her.
Right. And I think that that's why we have to be mindful, like you stated, of who we accept. A lot of people tell me oftentimes, "Oh, I didn't know you knew such and such." And I'll say, "I don't. Who is that person?" And they'll say, "Oh, I saw on your Facebook page." And I'm like, "Which Facebook page?" And they'll say, "Oh, I don't know. You had the purple shirt." I said, "Right. Love Shouldn't Hurt has tons of followers. And I don't know all of them because a lot of them follow me and support me. But the difference between that page and my personal page is that I am very, very keen on who I accept on my personal page for the same reason of you. I share pictures of my daughter, share pictures of my grandmother, my brother-in-law when he was sick. So you don't want just random strangers that you have no idea who they are on your page. Love Shouldn't Hurt. I have a lot of people that follow me because of the organization. Marisol Gonzalez, whoop, whoop, that's family right there. No one knows what's in the pot, only the one who is stirring it. Absolutely. So be mindful, ladies. Be mindful, men who are watching. If somebody asks you to watch someone for them, be mindful of why they're sending you, because you have no idea what their true intentions are. I have to apologize before we go on. I want to say this because I didn't do it at the top of the show and I'm supposed to, and I totally forgot. We're live, people. Esas cosas pasan. Just a reminder to everyone that is watching, you can contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. That number is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. You can also contact myself or any of my team at www.loveshouldnothurt.com or any of our social media platforms if you are seeking advice or help from someone who's being abused. Remember that if you dial 911 and you're scared for the person to know who you're calling, ask them for a pizza. Say you want to talk to customer service. There are trained individuals on the other side of that phone who know exactly what to ask you so that they can help you out in that moment. Back to our comments. Carmen says, I stopped posting my business where I was on a daily basis because of that. Right. And you know what's funny, Carmen? For a while, I stopped too. And it's something that I restarted doing again, checking in again. So I think I just checked myself tonight. I think I just checked myself.
I'm going to tell you this, and I hope that you remember it, because do you remember a couple years ago, we were at a birthday party for my son at a playground, and your daughter comes up and says, Mommy, so-and-so says hello. And you were like, how did they know who you were? And I was like, on you, because I was like, you post her on Facebook and you post her on Instagram, and this person just approached her out of the blue and was like, hey, I know your mom. And I was so mad because I was like, these people have no respect, no boundaries. And in my head, I was like, what a violation to go up to a little girl
Mm-hmm.
and say, hey, I know your mom, and have a whole conversation without her parent present. And I was like, what psycho does this? I mean, I still feel that way because I'm
Yeah.
like, you don't know if this person was a predator looking for you, where this person was like, hey, I'm your friend too because I know your mom. When in reality, who's to say that you guys were even friends at all, period?
Right.
So
Right.
I
I
think
do
people
remember
need
that.
to, if there's boundaries that people shouldn't cross, and maybe there was no ill intention, and that's fine. But I also feel like that's another example of how
Right.
people will use social media against you, and you never know
You never know.
what the intentions are.
Right. So we have a lot of comments. Before we do, I want to play a clip. This clip is of a comedian, and they're joking about domestic violence. I brought this clip up, and there's a second one as well, because I think that it's something. And before we even started the show, Jessica said, I hope it's not something I laughed at. And I told her, I even laughed at it myself when I first watched it. But when you go back now and you consider social media or just media in general, these are things that we see because social media and media definitely can joke about it. And so many people laugh about it without realizing that this is something that's true. So I want to play this video so you guys can see it really quickly.
Highway, we coming from an event. You know, my kid's in the back seat and we arguing. I'm like, you know what your problem is? You don't respect me as a man. Okay? Till you respect me as a man, we're gonna always have problems. That's why we fight so much. Hey, I'm thinking about putting my hands on you. Keep on, and I'm gonna show you what that feel like, cause you stupid. And you I've never been so afraid for my life, dude. She's trying to kill me. Highway.
I bet we all saw that and laughed when we watched that episode of Kevin Hart, right? So we all probably saw it and was like, oh my God, he's so funny. But when you think now in this context of Love Shouldn't Hurt and what it is that we do every week, a lot of people are watching this around the world. And there's so many people who watch it and probably just thought it was funny. And it's another way of showing how it's normalized. People just think, I beat up on my girlfriend, I beat up on my boyfriend, and it's no big deal. And that's not the only social media, that you see. I mean, in newspapers and magazine articles, it's joked about. People talk about it openly and people laugh about it. The media has played, I believe, from my opinion, plays a huge part in domestic violence because not a lot of people take it seriously.
We're desensitized now. We're completely desensitized, and there's more focus on the humor of it. And like in this case, there's more focus on the humor of the domestic violence,
Mm-hmm.
and there's not enough focus on the solution or the help that's available. So instead of saying, this is haha so funny, no one wants to be the Debbie Downer and say, are you okay? Like, can I get you some help? Do you need a phone number? Do you need like a secret signal or anything like that? It's more like, oh, that was just so funny. I can't believe I laughed that hard.
Carmen says, I saw that and I cried because it was not funny at all. That's the thing. People like ourselves who have been through it can watch it and be like, he's so wrong. Like, I love Kevin Hart, think he's hilarious. But there's a lot of times in his comedy that he says things that I'm like, I can't believe he said that type of thing. But he's not the only one. There's so many other people in the media who do it often. I mean, they do it in TV shows. I mean, look at how many times, you watch a regular TV show, The Family Guy or whatever, and they talk about it and it's a joke. Like everybody's desensitized. So, and when we get to the half an hour mark, I want to switch over to how social media can help people in domestic violence because I think there's also ways that people use social media that can be positive. But right now, I think that the negative part is crazy. Like I said, cyber stalking someone, people use social media for everything, right? So they get on there and they put pictures up of their friends and their girls. But what happens to those people who are in an argument and they record the person that they're with? And they've done something or they've acted crazy and that person is recording them. They can use social media as a weapon, a huge weapon. Sex, people record others having sex without them knowing it. And now you broke up with this abuser, you're no longer with them, they can sit there and put it on their social media and damage your reputation, make you look terrible. Like it can be used as a weapon. Teresa Fetzer just gave us a comment. Let's see that comment. The problem is folks really don't see domestic violence as a real situation because it's not their situation. This is where ignorance needs to turn into education. Exactly. Teresa says it happened to me. I think that's a big part of domestic violence. And I think that's why it was the way that it was when Jessica was a part of it. Because if you didn't watch Oye Comai, that episode, go back and watch it. She talks about how she was a part of it. And I kind of called her out on it too. On how, you know, one of the evenings that I was beat, she showed up right after and she spoke of wanting to kill him herself. She brought her gun. My girl was ready to go. She was ready to hurt him. But she lived through that with me. But then other people who were in my life are so desensitized and they were like, why? Like, why is it such a big deal? Why'd y'all make a big deal out of it? It is a big deal. The man knocked me out cold in front of my child, roofed my phone so that I couldn't contact the police, and left me there knocked out on the sofa. It is real. But then people who are just used to it, like that happens in my household, thought that it was crazy that she showed up with the gun and wanted to hurt him. So I think that too many people are desensitized and don't take it seriously. So social media allows people to joke about it, allows them to portray it as just some funny thing without seeing that the people who are on the other side watching are hurt from it.
I think it's an awkward situation too, because you don't really know the extent of other people's struggle and their domestic violence in their household. So it becomes so awkward that they want to make a joke out of it. Almost like when someone trips and falls, you know, and they get hurt and you think it's so funny that they tripped and they fell and you ha ha ha, because it's an awkward situation to see someone do that. So I think that when it comes to the media or social media or even shows and TV, it's so awkward that people just need to make a joke out of it because, like Teresa said, it's not their reality, so they don't know how to approach it.
Yeah. Christine Santos, I like her message. So this might cover you again, just because it's long. Social media is definitely a double-headed sword. My ex brought FB messages to court when we fought over custody. Even though the evidence wasn't too damaging, the problem was that he pretended to be someone else. Yes, that is a super big problem because you can take social media and people can disguise themselves to be such amazing folks. And then you're reacting because you're being antagonized. And then later on, it's like, I told you she was crazy. So, you know, you're right. It's a double-edged sword when it comes to social media and how people perceptions run. Teresa, my ex would videotape me screaming at him to just go. And he showed everyone after he finally left. And to this day, those folks believe I am the problem. And you know what? Today, I don't give a shit.
Girl, go Teresa. Good for you. And I'm sure that took a long time to get to where you are now.
Absolutely. So, I totally get it, Teresa. I can touche on that. I get that experience. I've lived through it. Alicia says, yes, some people check social media because they want to know when their house would be empty, especially when someone goes away on vacation to literally rob them out of their house and home. Exactly. That's why a lot of people end up being robbed by people they know because they got people who are following them and know what it is, not even watching to see when they leave. You have people who watch you. And I spoke about this today with a friend of mine. You have people who watch your social media to tell how much money you have. And if you show off fancy watches, these same people are your friends and they go into your house. And when they use your bathroom, they're looking for those jewels. They're looking for that money because they feel as though, well, they showed it. I know it's somewhere in this house.
Be like me. Don't let anybody come visit you.
Evelyn Ramos says, do you think recent movements like Me Too movement has made media more accountable? Twitter, FB forcing a Trump disconnect. I think that the Me Too movement kind of opened the door for a lot of people because when that movement first began, you saw that there was folks like Christina Applegate and a bunch of different people on social media, like artists that you see every day who finally were speaking up and they use social media to do that. So I think that actually was super, super big. I think social media controls a lot. Like she said, forcing Trump to disconnect. Definitely, like it shows a control. And it's like she said, a double-edged sword for either the good or the bad. So we're at 29 minutes. If we speak about the good, social media, I believe, gave the Me Too movement the force that it needed. It fueled it. It gave the moment for people to be able to finally say, I was abused. This person abused me, and we went through this by using that. Carmen says, I have learned so much from joining Love Shouldn't Hurt every Tuesday. Thank you, Carmen. You are definitely a devout follower, and I appreciate you. You are here every week, and we do appreciate that. Jennifer Rivera says, my ex did the same thing, Teresa, and he was always trying to clown me on FB. I think that's something that a lot of people do. I think that they find that as their like tool. Some people
It's
who can't find
narcissistic
it
tendencies
is
to
very
try to make you
narcissistic
seem
tendency.
completely insane. Narcissists have that tendency to push you and push you and push you until you react. And once you react,
Right.
suddenly they take a step back and they go, do you see how crazy she is? I think we've
Yeah.
all been in that sort of a
Oh
relationship
yeah.
where you explode and then they turn around and they go, you're absolutely out of your mind.
Right.
Completely forgetting or ignoring the fact that you've taken a lot up until this point to explode.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad someone else said it besides
I
me,
mean,
so I
I've
don't
been
even.
there, so I
I've been
get
there
it.
too. I am sorry you had to go through that. It's just so unfair, but you are here now and we got love. We got you. Jennifer Cabrera, let's talk about being shamed about domestic violence and the mental effects after losing yourself and ability to make your own decisions.
Jen,
Yes. Yes. Well, let's take that Alicia comment down for a second. I want to talk about the Jennifer comment. Jessica, you were about to say something about Jennifer?
I love Jennifer. I've known Jennifer for a long time, so I do love her. And it's sad that they. Anyway, go ahead.
No, no, I get it. I know what you're trying to say. I think that you're talking about shaming you, and that's a lot of difficulties for people who have lived through domestic violence. You know, you're a lot of people who deal with domestic violence close that door. They don't get back into relationships. A lot of people. I mean, you can look up the statistics, and a lot of those relationships, people are so terrified to move on, they never do. And sadly, the ones that do, unfortunately, a part of being in a relationship is allowing that person to know sides of you that you wouldn't tell other people. And you tell them about your abuse and you tell them about things that you go through. And then later on down the line, when things are not working out, you're shamed about it and you're made to look bad. So Jennifer, I get that because I've heard that from a lot of different women who have said that. Like, he tells me that maybe I deserve to be hit, and maybe that's just something that I need to like put me in shape, or that's his way of making me feel like I'm crazy. It's done constantly, and that's what people are always telling me when they write to me. I'm constantly shamed about my abuse, constantly called the victim. It's something I believe that a lot of people go through, and it depends on who you date after you've dealt with this domestic violence. Sometimes you open up that door thinking you're meeting a Mr. Right or Miss Right, and then they end up being just as bad because they may not hit you, but then by shaming you, they're doing the same thing. It's like a mental breakdown.
Can I also say I'm gonna add to that from a different perspective because I feel like there's also, and we've talked about this in the comments earlier today, but there's always going to be that someone that says, well, what did you do?
Mm-hmm.
There's someone's on the outside that's probably close to the relationship or close to someone in the relationship that says, well,
Right.
if he hit you, well, you obviously you triggered him, you did something.
Right.
Or when I was on the show previously with Evelyn and you, it was our grandmothers or our aunts would say, ay mija, eso no es nada. Or it became almost like, yeah, but it's your fault. He hit you, but I mean, it was obviously your fault. So
Mm-hmm.
that to me is a form of shaming too, because there's someone on the outside who doesn't know your relationship the way that you know your relationship. Because, like you said, you're making yourself vulnerable to someone,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the whole point of being in a relationship is to have that companionship and be your vulnerable self.
Mm-hmm.
And there's someone on the outside that's probably going, well, you started it, you know, or it could be anything. Well, you said this, or you wore this, or you didn't cook this way, so you started it, and therefore it's your fault. What are you complaining about?
And again, those people on social media who have no idea what happens in your home, but they only hear the abuser's side. So then they're watching your social media and they're like, she was out last week and did you see what she was wearing? No wonder he smacks on her. She's out there with no respect for him. Look how she's dressed. Like, they don't know the full story. So whatever's fed to them is what they get. So then social media becomes their weapon. Like, I saw what she was wearing. And who was the guy that was in one of her pictures? That's probably why he smacked her. Social media, I say it all the time, is the devil. It really is. It can make or break a relationship. It really can. There's so many times when people have said, she got hit, she got beat, or unfortunately she got killed. And then you find out leading up to that, like you'll hear people who feel guilty, like, oh my God, I used to tell him what I saw on her page, or I used to feed
If they
him like
feel
where she
guilty.
was, if they feel guilty. But for those who do, who think to themselves, I watched what was going on her page and I used to feed it to him. Could I have been part of that problem? People don't realize what they feed that person because they're only getting one side of the story. So they think, oh, he could never, he would never. And then it leads up to some sort of death or beating. And then they think, was I a part of that? Did I, did social media like play a role in that? I want to go back to Evelyn's comment of the Me Too movement. And Teresa said we should start that on our own. We should have it. And honestly, it's something I thought of before, but I didn't want to sound corny. But I think that the Me Too movement was one of the most important ways that domestic violence was shown. And even, at that time they were talking about being raped or sexual abuse. But I think that in any aspect of it, even with domestic violence, Me Too movement, it ran like literally one or two celebrities saying me too. I was, sexually assaulted by whoever in Hollywood. I didn't even know what
Gave
it was
people the
at first.
courage.
It did give people the courage, and I didn't even know what it was at first. I was like, what is this Me Too thing? Like, what are they doing? But it's because through social media it was able to continue as it did. I started looking it up and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Evelyn says social media is social media the devil though? Could that be another way to blame the victim? Yeah, you're right. You're right. I say social media is the devil, and I say that because there's so many people who use social media as their way of hurting other people, or like we said, cyber stalking other people,
Their
or just
weapon of
giving
choice.
their weapon of choice. Exactly. And social media is huge in that, especially in domestic violence, because we use that as our weapon. Christine says emotional abuse can have longer lasting effects on you, of course. So sorry it happened, but so glad you are strong now. God bless. Definitely. I say that all the time that emotional abuse, verbal abuse, they last a whole lot longer than any physical abuse because what people say to you stays a whole lot longer than those bruises do. Teresa, rule one of dating after abuse: keep that to yourself until you fear you can share, and only if you choose to do so. My ex gave me that advice. Good advice. I think a lot of times I regret sharing my story with people that I've dated. Honestly, I think right now it's difficult because of the platform that I run. I don't think I could ever be private again about the abuse that I endured because of this platform, unfortunately. But I think that that was a big part of my problem in the past because when I spoke about it to people that I dated, they started off as wonderful. And then in the end, that's what they used against me of why I deserve to be abused and all of the above because our relationship didn't work. So they knew that that was something that hurt me and they used that against me.
Or they treat you like damaged goods.
Right, right. So the next comment we want to put up is big. Sorry, Jessica. I was with my kid's father for almost 12 years. I was 17, him 18, and dealt with physical, mental, and emotional abuse. Then I met a man in 2019, and though he was my saving grace, and he ended up being a narcissist as well. Now I'm scared to be with anyone because I feel I have bad judgment of character. I would rather be alone than to suffer. I think a lot of people feel that way. I think a lot of people feel like, what's the saying in Spanish? Mejor te estar sola
Que es
de
mal
mal
acompañada.
acompañada. I
But you
think a
know
lot.
what? You have to, this is part of your healing, Jennifer. Like, you have to, and Chrissy will testify that I have said this a million and one times. You cannot expect someone to love you until you love yourself.
Right.
And you will come to love yourself when you are healed. And when you're completely healed and comfortable in your own skin, that is when you're going to realize that you deserve to be loved if that's what you choose to do. I feel like, you know, people deserve companionship. People deserve to be loved. People deserve to have their significant other that they, if that's what they want, if you want to be happily married, that's your choice. If you want to be miserably married, that's your choice too. Um, but you're not going to get there until you heal from your own experiences and until you can hold your head up high and say, there's not a single person on this planet that's going to take that away from me. So, I mean, I've said this to you a million and one times. I feel like you cannot expect someone to love you until you love yourself,
Absolutely.
but that's part of the process. And I feel like, unfortunately, there are women that leave one domestic violence situation and jump into another.
Yes.
But when
Always.
you are done, you are done. When you say, I'm not going to tolerate it anymore, that's when you draw the line in the sand and move on from it. So don't let anybody make you feel that way, Jennifer, because you're worthy of whatever it is that you want. If you want to be loved or if you want a companion.
Definitely. So I want to show the next video before we touch on Carmen's comment. Let's show that second video so we can see this other comedian joke about domestic violence.
So at the end of the hour, they come to the logical conclusion. They're like, there is no reason to hit a woman. There is no reason to hit a woman. And I was just like, really? I could give you like 17 right off the top of my head. You could wake me from a drunken stupor. I could still give you like 9. Dude, this.
When I saw that one, because it was so outright, it made me so angry. Because it goes on. I only showed the one piece, but it goes on and it goes on and it goes on. And he jokes the entire segment for about 20 minutes about why women should get beat and why we deserve it. And I know that it's in a moment of comedy, but people who watch it will laugh at it and take it seriously. And I think that's the shameful part. I think that people don't realize that their words, people are listening to them. And people are probably like, she's taking it so seriously. But I definitely, I'm so different now from what I was in the past. So things like that really make me angry. Like watching it, just hearing him, I'm like, man, I wish I was in front of him type of thing. Because it's like, why is it okay? And why is it so funny? And then it's always like, men joke about it, right? You never see women joking about it. And when you do see them joking about it, that even further makes you angry because you're like, so many women get beat every day. Why would this be a part of your stand-up? Like, I get a lot of them talk about personal things, but why make that a part of your stand-up, knowing that there's so many people who are affected by domestic violence? Teresa says it's not funny. So I want to go back into the positive, right? Because we said that the last 30 minutes we talk about positive. So one big thing, and not tooting my own horn, but I think one big thing that has made a positive view on domestic violence, right? Social media has played a huge impact, is all of our social media for Love Shouldn't Hurt. We're constantly putting up positive things for women. We put our weekly shows on there so that people can see it. We put up positive quotes. We put up people's stories. I think that our social media and different social media that I visited, not just Love Shouldn't Hurt, I visited other social media platforms of people. You know, I had a woman reach out to me today. She wants me on Saturday to be on her show. And she said to me, which was touching, because, you know, you do this and there's so many naysayers. And then when there's positive people, you're like, oh my God, I feel great. Someone who just watched and she said, I'm sorry, I stalked you. I stalked all of your social media and I saw like all of your videos and like, oh my God, you know, I went through domestic violence for a long time and, you know, you're speaking about it and you're making this like your word, like people watch you every week. She's like, I'm so proud. And like, I started telling people to follow you. Like, that's a positive way to use social media. It's a positive outlet to go onto our Facebook page and show positive videos of things that are happening. People think that social media has to be negative all the time. So I do want to highlight that there are good ways of doing so. I mean, magazine articles, you know, I've been in magazine articles telling my story, and other people, famous people, actors, actresses who've been on and told their stories via social media. I think it's the negative people who kill it for us in social media that sometimes we see. And especially, like I said, in news stories, they always downplay the victim. There's so much victim blaming in our society.
You have to remember too, Chrissy, that Me Too movement was unheard of at some point, right? There was Rose McGowan one day was just sitting on Twitter complaining about Harvey Weinstein, and the next thing you know, hashtag Me Too. And there was people that had no idea what that was. And for a long time, you admitted it yourself, there were people that had no idea what that was.
Right.
But the good thing is that you're the driving force right now. So everywhere, it has to start somewhere. It has to start at some point. And you can't give up on that just because there's a couple naysayers here and there. And the fact that people reach out to you and they look at this as an outlet and therapeutic for them too, you know, that's enough fuel for them to turn around and say, you know what? You know, I was in your situation. Or now there's more people, I believe, that can recognize the domestic violence, you know, in a friend, you know, from your experience. I look at my friendships a little bit differently because you never know if they're trying to tell me something just on the slide. So I feel like the social media aspect of it is that the word gets out and then suddenly there's more people that can recognize, or there's more people that have an awareness. And even if it's only an awareness, that's in the back of their heads where they can say, you know what, I've seen something about this, and if you need help, I know that there's a hotline for it.
Right.
So that's where the social media can be the positive driving force on this.
Right. Absolutely. So we have a lot of comments that we haven't put up yet, and I know we've gone back and forth, but I want to get into some of the comments because I always want to make sure that you guys know what's going on. Alicia says, yes, Jessica, I just know I'm being very cautious and I'm not settling for just anyone. Absolutely, because you have to remember that there's a lot of people who start off positive and then end up being wolves underneath those sheep coverings. Sad part of this comedy, there's many men that feel this way. Absolutely. There's a lot of men who joke about it. I've been in rooms with men who've joked about domestic violence because they think that it's funny. So there's too many people out there who do think it is. Teresa says, I found love shouldn't hurt. Yes, you did find me, Teresa, and you've been super supportive and loving every week and super supportive of everything that we do. So we appreciate you. Jessica, what's the next comment? What does that say?
It says from Carmen Gonzalez, I used to hate men, but God gave me a wake-up call. I have 5 sons. Oh my goodness, God bless you. And now that they are older, they are so overprotective of me because they remember. And you know what, Carmen? I promise you that those boys probably go into their relationships with a little bit more care and caution, and they'll never disappoint you when it comes to that. They won't be that abuser.
Definitely. Carissy DeRigo. I keep covering you, just sorry.
I'm cool.
After 20 some years of being abused mentally and physically, I thank God every day that I'm not with my ex. I'm with a great man, woohoo, now who values me and builds me up. And I'm so happy now, but I'm healing every day. I'm very happy to be a part of this with all of you. Thank you. We appreciate you and we appreciate everybody that's watching. I want you guys to know that. I definitely never thought anybody would follow this cause, honestly, my honest to God truth. And if Zulma was watching, she would say it. I was always nervous, and Ray's watching. He's my producer back there putting everything up. But I get super, super like very negative and like anxiety ridden before any of our events because I'm always like, what if people don't show? What if they don't come? And they're always like, shut up. People will be there. And for every event, our Love Gala was phenomenal. I thought nobody would buy a ticket, right? And then the day of, people were standing because they didn't care. They just wanted to come in. So it shows that our followers and people see our social media and what we're doing. And it's been a positive point for them. Jennifer Rivera says, yes, I am raising my son so he doesn't turn out like his abusive father. Touche to that, because I think the only way they'll learn is through us. Jessica, what's the next one?
So Carmen says, yeah, they are great young men. My eldest is 21. And you know what? I'm gonna say this really quickly. Now that I saw Chrissy's comment, and I've addressed this with her previously, but when I say that now there's a different awareness when it comes to domestic violence. I saw Chrissy a couple years ago at an event, and we took a selfie. And Chrissy, I actually think you were at this event, and I think that we were going out afterwards. And I like casually invited her, like, hey, come on, we're gonna go out for a couple drinks or whatever. And she said something that never left me. And she said, no, I gotta get home. And then she said his name. She said, or he's gonna kill me or something to that effect. And I never forgot that.
Oh, she said I left bingo. Yeah, I was with you.
Yes, I never forgot that. And that has stuck with me for years, because how many years ago did we do that event? And we went out and we went out drinking after the event. And I actually apologized to her a couple months ago because I said, I'm sorry that I didn't recognize it, because that has stuck with me over the years. And more so now with the whole love shouldn't hurt, and the reason why, and the reason why this is, a movement. Now I'm getting emotional, Christy. Jeez. But I never forgot that. And I'm grateful and I'm thankful to God that she did not turn up to be a statistic the way that our friend did.
Right. So
there you go. The awareness is there now that the movement is out there.
And I think that I'm great that you said that. And you said that you see things differently. My portrayal of people's social media, since we're talking about social media, you got her crying, and it's a lot to take out of my.
Because I really did reach out to her and I apologized to her.
Well, you know what? I have a friend who watches all the time, Rafael Collazo, and every time I try to get him on the show, he always says, and so does Caesar Santiago, who is my daughter's godfather, says the same thing. It's difficult for him to come onto the show and talk about this subject and be in the public eye because he says, I don't think I'm ready to do that yet because I still blame myself because he was a part of my life. He literally was the landlord of where I lived when I was physically being abused. And he, honest to God, tried to help all the time. Like he called cops. He tried to keep him out of the house. Like he tried his best. And I tell him that all the time. I've never held any anger towards you. I've never, like that had nothing to do with it. No one knew how to deal with the situation when it was happening. But the way that you see things now, especially through social media, like you said, you look at your friends differently. I look at people's social media differently because I know that around that time it was MySpace. So like when I was going through my drama, you know, you could like change your page and stuff like that. I would put like, I literally would put like, you could change the music. So I would put like sad music in my background. My profile picture was like just sad, like someone crying. And like, it just was like, oh, that's just Chrissy and her social media page. But now because of my movement, I look at people's pages differently. And I know you can't feed into everything that people watch. I mean, people post. But sometimes I see someone's social media and I'll be honest, I'll inbox them and I'll be like, hey, babe, you're good. You know, how you doing? Just checking in. Because I feel like there might be people who are posting things also as signals. People may not be able to outright tell me I'm being abused directly. So indirectly on their Facebook, they can change their profile picture to like someone with tears in their eyes, or you'll notice that their posts start talking about sad times and not finding happiness. So social media has definitely been an outlet for me because I'm that girl now. I'm gonna inbox you. You start putting up really sad stuff for real. I'm texting like, you good? Like you want to talk about anything? Because, you know, sometimes people don't have that direct outlet. So they'll use social media as their way of saying things. Like we do that ourselves, right? We do that with other things. Like we don't say in person what's going on, but then we'll post something, even a happy meme. Like we'll post a happy meme and you'll be like, oh my God, what's that? And you'll be like, I got a new job. And it's like, oh, I saw that on your social media because you put this meme up type of thing. So social media has made me look at differently, especially now with this movement. Like I see people's social media and I'm like, she all right?
Do we need to have a talk?
Do we need to have a moment? Teresa Fetzer says, I ain't gonna lie. I use my page for therapy quite often, and you all hold me up on a bad moment. I know, Teresa, I watch every day, girl. You be putting people in their place indirectly. Jennifer says, yes, true. Chrissy DeRigo said, we are all going to go out and celebrate. Yes, we are. When this pandemic is over, we need to have, let me tell you something, people. We're only at 8 minutes left of this show. 2021 is going to be the for Love Shouldn't Hurt because we had our first 5K last year through a pandemic. We're going to rock it this year because once people start getting vaccinated and we're allowed to be back in the world, we're going to do it better than we did it last year. Our Love Gala is not happening next month because I need y'all to get vaccinated so you're not hanging next to me breathing on me, okay? Let's be honest. But we having it in 2021.
Not cute with ball gowns.
No, we want to be dressed up and look good. So 2021, I'm speaking into existence because we are listening. Social media, keep an eye on social media since that's what we're talking about. You will know when we have our Love Gala. And we said it, 2021, another way of using social media positively. We are working on our second documentary, which social media will definitely help us do. So social media can be the death of us, but it can also be an uplifting place. So Ray Velez says, get ready for a Love Shouldn't Hurt convention this year. Yes, we speak it into existence. Everything we wanted to do last year is going to happen this year. And I speak that into existence. So if there's any final remarks, then we'll do that in a second. What I want to say to people who are watching and are like, what has social media got to do with this topic? It is major. Be mindful of what you post. Be mindful of your surroundings and those you allow into your surroundings, and use social media positively. If you have that person who asks you to watch another person for them, tell them, no, I don't want to be that guy. Choose somebody else, because you never know what people are using social media for. It can be the good and it can also be the bad. Before we get Jessica's closing thoughts, let's run through a few of the comments that we have not seen. Carmen. Sorry, Ray. I saw that one, so I pressed it before you could. It says, being a part of this group has helped me pay attention to my friends more. Yes, Carmen, that's exactly what Jessica said. And I think that that's something that we all now are doing. I think people did not know what was happening in people's lives, and through social media we've learned a whole lot. Ray Velez says, Ray, what's your comment? Put it up. Use that block button.
Don't
Seriously.
be afraid.
That's
Don't be
right.
afraid.
Do not be afraid. You do not need to accept everyone's friend request. Teresa Fetz,
Mind.
mind your business. Teresa's so nice with her words.
I love her.
Hi. Who else? Ray, let's go through here. Let's look at some comments we haven't seen up yet. I know we have some.
That's
LF girls
great.
in the house. Yes, that's right. There's a lot of LS girls in the house tonight. LF, I say LS. I would love to go to an event. You going to this year, Jennifer? We doing it. Don't worry about it. 2021, we rocking it. Chrissy DeRigo, we saw that one. My producer's in the back trying to figure out what we have and have not seen. I want to make sure I get everybody. Oh, Alicia, that's one we didn't see. Chrissy, you know my story. My domestic violence was emotional, not physical. And I found out about his affair via social media. That's about, see, I told you, social media, where he updated his. Now, people, the background story, they have been married for over 20 years, okay? And this man updated his profile to say in a relationship with, and he put his amante, which is the woman he was with's name. So the emotional domestic violence in the end was a big blow to my self-esteem. Overall, social media has its pros and cons, but you know what? I'm stronger now than ever. 2021, I'm coming for you. Watch me war. Woo! Mira. That's crazy. I still don't believe that. How are you married with children for over 20 years and you get on social media when people know who your wife is and you change it to in a relationship with so-and-so? You gotta got balls to do that.
That's a whole nother love shouldn't hurt conversation, but I'm gonna say he was a coward and he didn't know how to end his marriage.
Yeah, that was like wowzers. That's, you got some huge balls to do something like that, bro. And the crazy thing is he still was trying to deny it after that. Like, what? No, I'm not with anyone. Crazy. That's what they do. Lies. So there's a lot, but I know that when this is over, I will go back and read all your comments. As per always, I want to thank you guys for being such a supportive audience. We are going to have another fantastic show next week. So we're going to let Jessica give us her final thoughts on that show. And then I'm going to put up our flyer for next week so that you guys know what is happening next week. What we're trying to do, people, is prepare you for every week so you know what it is that we're doing in advance so you can get excited for it. You don't have to wait for the flyer. You already know what's coming. So Jessica, what are your closing thoughts on social media and domestic violence?
Use your social media platform for the good and not the bad or the ugly. You know, there's a lot of negativity in this world and you don't need to contribute to it. So if you are using yours to spread love and not hate, or not to instigate or be part of the gossip circle, that's just a better day for everyone all around. Not to mention that you can use your social media as a way to let people know that you're willing to help, even if it's just an ear to listen to. Because sometimes we already know that people in domestic violence situations aren't always ready to leave. But sometimes if they can have an outlet or someone to listen to them, that's the first step to being able to get their lives back together. So stay safe, everyone.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you again for coming and being here with us and sharing your time, because I know you got two wonderful boys upstairs. I haven't seen them, people, but I love them. It's my godson and my nephew. So I know that your little one is probably at the door like, is she done yet? So thank you.
I haven't heard him, so maybe he's eating some snacks and that's why.
So thank you for taking your time out. Just very quickly, folks, as Jessica said, use your social media to be positive. You never know who's watching. Just like they say with your smile, they always say you never know who's watching. So keep a smile on your face because your smile might be brightening someone up. So let's use that and pay it forward to everybody that might be paying attention to your social media. We all have those moments where we say negative things on social media because maybe we had a bad day that day, or our kids are driving us nuts that day. And, you know, we just say something negative, but let's be mindful of what it is that we put up, and let's always be positive. And remember, like Ray said, remember the block button. Don't accept everyone because you never know. Next week's show, let's put that flyer up, will be political views on domestic violence. We will have Ketsi Lozada, who worked in City Hall for many, many years. She actually worked closely to Linda Rios, who is the reason behind Love Shouldn't Hurt. So she is going to come on next week and talk to us on the political views on domestic violence. Don't miss it. Be here and join us. That is our next topic for next week. Again, it's been great to share the night with all of you. Thank you for being here with us. I love all of you. I love our audience and our guests. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.